Thank you. Sorry for that interruption. Um, um, Colleges are struggling too. The admissions, having just come from the college admission world and still being in touch with many of my former colleagues, I know that admissions has become really challenging on the front lines. Many colleges have responded differently to the virus, and they've had different situations with regard to cases and tracing and so forth. So there's a lot of uncertainty on campuses with regard to how they're going to be or stay or come open. The recruiting has gone all virtual, there are no. The college fairs are very different this year. The ability to be spontaneous, either for college reps or for students, is dramatically limited by all of this. So it creates a level of uncertainty. What do I think we're going to see? I think that at the selective institutions, we're likely to see a little bit greater push toward early decision. Some of them, including most recently, I think Tufts just pushed their early decision one deadline from November 1st to November 15th to give students a little bit more time to get that early application in. And that may sound seductive to students, but you have to be mindful of the fact that when you apply early decision, you're making a commitment. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on as well. So all of this just bodes for the need to stay in touch with your counselor as your interests and your list develop. I think in general, it's unlikely to be tougher admissions at most places. I think, the colleges are not sitting back fat and happy with their projected applicant pools. I think they're still going to be open. I think standards and typical GPAs may see a little bit more flexibility than we've seen in the past. Now, it isn't going to elevate a below average student to an early decision admit at Williams. But I think there may be some added softness to the landing in admissions for students who submit their applications completely and online. Excuse me, I'm a novice meeting host. I'm admitting people who are here. I apologize for the delay. So anyway, that's a little bit of ramblings on my take on the state of college admissions and how I think our students at whatever level of preparedness they present, I think are going to be well served by the school and perhaps better served by the process than they might have been in other years because of the uncertainty that may weigh in their favor. Even as you consider the safety factors and perhaps the desire to stay closer to home. So we may also see a rise in interest for local community colleges, in-state publics, perhaps gap years, postgraduate years, that sort of thing. I've seen some students looking at those options. So it's all on the table at this point, and I just really encourage every senior to stay in touch with your counselor on a regular basis as your interests develop, as you tick off those items on your to-do list, and as you get really psyched about the future after Fenwick. With that, without further ado, we're now going to walk you through the evening's agenda. I'm going to share my screen, which is a really nifty PowerPoint presentation. If I can find it, again, novice meeting host. There we go. And one more thing I think I need to do to make this all the better. Let's get the comments out of there. And there we are. So this is you, the class of 2021. Congratulations, you're in the home stretch. Let's do a refresher course in terms of where you ought to be now. Many of these things are going to appear really familiar to hopefully most of you. To those for whom it's not familiar, let's go through it. I will click the slides as my colleagues tell me, but right now I'm going to turn over to Mary Lou McLaughlin to run us through what's been done so far. Have you got it? I need to unmute you, don't I? Again, novice host.
Okay. I think the best thing that families can do right now is to pull out the junior handbook that's online and check the list of things that they were to be doing through the spring and the summer, just to see where you are. And right now, we can't look back. We have to look forward. And the best place to start is having that meeting with your individual counselors, and just figure out where you are, where you need to go, and what the timing on that is. The must that the counselor is going to want as soon as possible is that student profile. And if you don't have a copy of it, it's online, and we can certainly help you in the office with it. We need to know who you asked to write your academic recommendations. That is so important, because those recommendations take hours for each of our teachers to craft, and they need to know that they are writing them and for whom they're writing them, so that they can be working on those and have them ready when the student needs them ready. So it's the counselor that stays in touch with the teacher and lets them know when we need those recommendations. And if we don't know who you asked and we don't know when you're applying, we can't keep that process going on your behalf. So start with a meeting with your counselor, know who is writing your recommendations, share that information if you haven't already. I know many of you have already done this. Make sure your student profile is in, and attached to your student profile is your updated resume. Many of our students did some pretty exciting things over the summer, despite the fact of COVID and being quarantined. I've been so impressed with courses that they took online and volunteer projects, reading to kids, all sorts of things. We want to make sure that we include that in our guidance counselor recommendation of each of the students. So again, you need to update that resume and make sure you get that to your counselor at that first meeting. Then the other piece that's very important, and the counselor can't really help your family with it, is the budget piece. You know, what can you afford? What schools, if there are no scholarships offered, can you afford? And that conversation, hopefully you've had by now, but certainly before you start applying. And then I think because of COVID, we're all faced as families to make individual decisions about where, parents in particular, where and under what conditions they're going to allow their students to go to college. Are you wanting them to be on campus? And so when you're looking at schools, you of course are going to be asking a lot of questions about what procedures they're taking. I think Fenwick has given us this very wonderful protective bubble, and we all feel safe in it. But walking across a college campus with 3, 4, 5, 6 times as many people living away from home, those are all considerations that need to be talked about openly, so that at the end, in May, we don't have disappointments and surprises. The worst thing a counselor has to deal with is a kid who comes in and, you know, surprise, surprise, I got into BU. It's my first choice. It's my dream school, but I didn't get any merit money and my parents have just told me I can't go. So have that conversation now, please. The pace of the application process is going to be determined by the student's earliest deadline. And so at this first meeting with your counselor, that is a date that is going to need to be determined. If you aren't worried about applying or meeting a deadline in the next month or 2 months, you know, you don't have to worry about that right now. But we have a lot of students that are going November 1, November 15, December 1, December 15th, anything before Christmas. Now is the time to share that information. And again, that is so the counselor can get all the information that is needed in your transcript packet together. And your transcript packet includes the transcript. It includes your counselor's recommendation and reports. It includes the academic recommendation and reports. And that takes a lot to get. So the earliest deadline, that first one that we process, is probably the trickiest. And if there's going to be any bumps along the way, it's that one. So again, another reason to get that meeting with your counselor under your belt and lay out what you think the pace of your application process is going to be. The senior year for many, I think we notice this every year as counselors. As soon as the applications are in, moms and dads relax and exhale, and certainly the students relax and exhale. And then we go through a period where the first acceptances come back, and we post them up on the senior board, and a lot of kids start to get a little anxious about, why haven't I heard? And then we launch immediately into scholarships. So the senior year doesn't stop, or this process, I should say, does not stop with you hitting the submit button on your last application. It actually goes through all the way through graduation and beyond. And to talk about that is going to be Mr. McMurray and Mrs. Strezek.
Thank you. So having come into your senior year all fully prepared, this is where you ought to be this month. As Mary Lou said, you should have already scheduled or be about to schedule your meeting with your guidance counselor to help you get all set up and see where you are, and start with your own personal timetable. You should really, if you haven't already, you should be looking into the colleges virtually as best you can, and that may involve the school scheduled meetings that are specific to Fenwick, that are scheduled virtually and that are in Naviance, where the admission counselor basically holds court with a group of our students. There also are virtual college fairs through some of the professional associations and some of the community-based organizations in the area, which are opportunities to drop by a number of different colleges. And we have many of those dates posted as resources within the Fenwick websites. Many colleges are doing, some are even doing limited on-campus tours, though that's pretty rare. But a lot of them are running virtual tours that are to some degree even possibly interactive, where they have tour guides leading video tour around and pointing to different buildings and the like. And I suggest that whenever possible, you try to schedule one of those virtual tours as a family, and just pretend you're sitting in the golf cart going around the campus with the tour guide together, so you can ask questions and talk about what you see as a family, at least as close to taking the tour together as you can be these days. I can't stress enough, as you interact, you students, as you interact with admissions counselors virtually or through online interviews or what have you, or even at colleges you're interested in that you haven't really had any direct contact, find out who the admission counselor is that reads applications for Fenwick, and we can help you with that. And reach out by email. Either if you've visited, if you've come to a virtual visit or a virtual tour, send a thank you. If you're just interested in the school and you want to get on the radar screen beyond just being a number in the computer, reach out to the counselor by email and say, "Dear Ms. So-and-so, I just wanted to let you know I'm a senior at Bishop Fenwick. I'm interested in such and such, and I understand you're the person who reviews for our school. I'd love a chance to meet with you if possible," something to that effect. As a former admission counselor, I can tell you how impressive those are, how rare they are, relatively speaking, and how much impact they have. I have 3 or 4 shoe boxes full of the cards And if even half the students I'd come in contact with had done that, I'd have a truckload. So it really will help you stand out, help you get on the radar screen of the places you're most interested in. I also can't stress, check your email regularly. I can't get over how many students go days and days and days without checking email. There may be something very important in there from either one of us or from one of your colleges. And I hope you've already had the instructions. I think your Fenwick email for college information should serve you just fine. It's much better than, gnarlybiker@gmail. It's good that you have an email that can be dedicated for college stuff as well as for your school information. So please just check your email at least once a day, please. As I said, the virtual visits are in Naviance. Oops, sorry. Make sure that you keep your list of colleges I'm applying to up to date on Naviance. And it's good to let your counselor know when you've updated it too, because we don't always get the email. We don't always get the ping. And obviously continue working on the various parts of the application and seek help from your counselor, from your teachers. Try not to write your essay in one draft. It's almost never going to serve you well that way. It's good to have other sets of eyes run across it. September, October continued. As Mary Lou said, if you haven't yet approached the teacher, time is tight. So you really need to be courteous to your teacher and helpful to yourself by making that outreach as soon as possible. And again, I would just suggest dropping a quick note or sticking your head into your counselor's office and saying, I finally asked Ms. So-and-so to write my recommendation for me, and I'm taking care of it. As far as the financial piece, if you are applying to colleges that require the CSS profile, and that's a point of research that you need to do into the admissions and particularly financial aid section, you should begin working on and completing the CSS profile and those early applications in November in time for early reads. Really, probably the most important thing you can do in and around, oops, sorry, I did it again. The most important thing you can do is do well in school. You have a real advantage here in some ways that we are now a trimester school and that we'll be able to provide real official first term grades for even our early applicants with not too far after the deadlines. So if you have a good first trimester at whatever level you were at starting the year, you are going to do nothing but improve your position when it comes to admission. There's a lot of what have you done for me lately when you're talking about college admissions. The trend upward is the important thing. So keep that in mind. And the FAFSA, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the term, it's the free application for federal student aid. It's really the gateway to any and all federally funded and college offered financial assistance. So it's really important, even if you think you might not qualify, it really doesn't take all that much time to complete. And it gives every student, even who doesn't qualify for financial aid, the opportunity to take out a low interest student loan and have some skin in the game long term. So there are real advantages to filing the FAFSA. It is now open. You can file it right away. But if you need some help, and many people do, with understanding the whole financial aid and FAFSA system, we would normally be having a financial aid evening with the assistance of the Massachusetts Education Finance Authority at Fenwick. But with this pandemic, MEFA has taken all of their workshop stuff from schools and gone virtual. So in lieu of that, they are offering workshops on the FAFSA and the financial aid process Monday through Thursday every week until November 5th. So I encourage everybody, these are live virtual sessions, Mondays and Wednesdays at noon, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. You can attend one or you can attend all of them. Each one will feature a different expert from a financial aid office in Massachusetts colleges. So it's a good opportunity to hear from experts. And I believe they will have a Q&A available as well. And like I said, you can attend one and see it over and over, or you can attend multiples and see them over and over. And it's really a great service they're providing. The rest of the fall, November and December, once the early applications are in, it's still a season for trying to learn as much as you can about the colleges you're interested in, visiting virtually, communicating with admission counselors. Many, in fact, probably most applications are going to have due dates in January, maybe even February. As applications are completed, keep in mind that we need to receive your application. You need to submit it at least 10 days prior to the start of the holiday break, so that we have time to process everything and get it out the door before we leave for the holidays. We want to make sure that everything is in. If you applied to colleges before the first report card comes out at the end of November, in other words, if you applied early, or submitted your application early, even if it isn't an early program, you need to let the guidance office know, so that we'll send your first trimester grades as soon as they're available. We will send them along once they're printed on all the transcripts with any subsequent applications. But anything you send out early, you need to let us know. And again, continue to do well. The second trimester ends in early March. So some students who might be deferred from early, or some students whose applications may have a later deadline, have another trimester to improve their standing academically. And then most important, well, not most importantly, but of equal importance, are to enjoy the holidays at the end of a hard fought and hard won fall trimester. In the early part of the year, more application deadlines are coming, although most will probably have most of their applications in by now. Because as you know, just because someplace has a February 1st deadline doesn't mean you can't submit your application in December and have it over. Again, continue working hard, and make sure that the colleges you're still active with receive your second trimester grades, because we won't necessarily do that automatically for every application that's out. So keep us posted. And as Mary Lou said, it becomes time for scholarships. Once the college applications process is over, you may be able to search for some additional sources of help in paying for it all. So when we get to the spring, the season changes yet again, and the tide turns pretty significantly for seniors. So I'm going to turn to my other colleague in the guidance office, Amanda Drezek, to walk us through this piece of it. Oop. Again, rookie host. Bear with me. Bear with me. There you go.
Okay. Bill, there you go. I was going to say, can you go back a slide? There. Okay. All right. So at this point in the year, in early spring, your son or daughter is going to continue to hear admissions decisions. You'll find out what the financial aid packages are, and you should most definitely have these results by mid-April. At this time, this is also a good opportunity for students to start applying to scholarships. There's a lot of new ones that come out in the spring. Mrs. Langer in the guidance office is wonderful. She keeps track of them all. She has paper copies of them and helps students find out or figure out what scholarship opportunities might be a good fit for them. Additionally, if you can, go visit colleges in the springtime. School is still in session. The weather's getting a little bit nicer. I don't know if these visits will still continue to be virtual, but of course, if you can go in person, that's ideal. We really appreciate it if students can keep their college list updated in Naviance. So as admissions decisions are made, if the student can go in and keep it updated on whether they were accepted or waitlisted or whatever it may be, it's helpful to us in tracking the admissions results. So please have your son or daughter come to guidance and tell us about admissions decisions and any scholarships that they may receive. We love hearing good news too, and because we are such an integral part of the process, that's an exciting time for us too. Also in March and April, it's still important for students to continue to work hard, even if they have been accepted to colleges. The second trimester will close on March 5th, and colleges will see your final senior grades, and they can withdraw the acceptance if they see any significant changes. Moving on to May and June, all students need to make a decision by May 1st. That's the national candidate reply date. And that's where a student has to notify one college of their decision to attend and put down their deposit. You should also notify all other colleges where you admitted that you will not be attending. Sorry about this, hold on.
Just like,
Okay, no, it's okay, it's okay. So, continue to finish strong, prepare for final exams. Students in AP classes will be taking AP exams, and they can have their score sent to the colleges they plan on attending. Again, the guidance office will send the final transcript to the college that your son or daughter chooses to attend. So they will get that final transcript out. And then May 28th is graduation day. I know that seems like a long way away, but it will be here before we know it. So it's a very exciting day, and we wish all of our students the best of luck. So the senior responsibility formula. So this has been put together to kind of try and explain how we all can work together. So the student, parents, and guidance, and teachers, how do we all work through this process to make it a successful plan? So let's talk a little bit about what the student responsibilities are. So the students are responsible for reaching out to their teachers and requesting recommendations. They're also required to give their teachers a copy of their resume or any other pertinent information that could help a teacher write a good letter of recommendation for them. Students are also responsible for sending any test scores from either College Board or ACT. This year looks a little bit different, although we do have the SAT on October 14th that many of you have signed up for. So if a student decides that they want to send their scores to college, they need to do that through College Board. This does not go through guidance, okay? So it's the student responsibility to make sure that they get their scores sent if they opt to send them. The student's responsible for filling out the applications and for requesting a transcript request or completing one of those forms. We do that for each school. I know Ms. McLaughlin will get into that shortly. And again, as Mr. McMurray had mentioned, the student is to request their first trimester grades and any mid-year reports that need to go out when they're available to make sure that the colleges receive those. Students also need to make sure that they keep their Naviance account updated. We've been working with our seniors over the last couple of weeks to make sure that they have a complete list in their Naviance accounts and making sure that they have set up their common application accounts as well. We're always here to support students in any way that we can. There's a ton of questions that come up when filling out applications. So please utilize us as a resource. That's what we're here for. What is guidance responsible for? As your counselor, we have individual and small group meetings with our students. We take parent appointments by request. We process the transcripts in school forms, and we send out all first quarter, mid-year, and final reports when requested by the student. We keep records of where and when all the transcripts are sent to, and we keep the Bishop Fenwick website updated with college visits and any scholarship postings. Again, we're really here to work with you to try to make this process as seamless as possible and really try to break it down into manageable pieces for your son or daughter. I know over the past couple weeks in my meetings with some of my seniors, they started off very nervous and they were saying, I'm so overwhelmed and this is too much for me to deal with. And by the end of the meeting, you could see that they are just so much calmer and, oh, this really isn't so bad. Like you really are breaking it down for me. So please, again, just utilize us how we can. Lastly, parent responsibilities. Just be knowledgeable and try and work with your son or daughter through the process. It can be very overwhelming to both them and you. So you just want to try to talk them through their decision-making process. If you can visit colleges together, do those virtual tours, it's great the more information you have so that you can talk about it together. As Ms. McLaughlin had mentioned, make sure that you discuss what the expected family contribution is going to be in terms of paying for college. That is a really important conversation to have. And then filling out the FAFSA forms and the CSS profile, that's something that as parents, it's important for you to fill out as well. I think that's it, Bill. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. McLaughlin. I think she's going to talk about the transcript request process.
I'm trying to unmute you. I'll get you. Just
I got it.
as a video producer, I'm a great guidance counselor.
The transcript request process starts with the student's application. In order for a college to begin an application file for a student, the only thing that can create that file is the student's application. So once the student applies and actually has hit that submit button on the application, the next step is to get all the supporting documentation sent from Bishop Fenwick directly to the school. And to do that, the student must give us permission, which is in the form of a written document called the transcript request. 99% of them will be on a piece of green paper that's available in the guidance office. Green meaning that they're not paper, they're saving trees, they're going electronically. However, there are colleges that want them still mailed, and we have a different color for that. And our scholarship transcript requests are a third color, pink. So the first apply, then fill out the transcript request, and you bring the transcript request, one per college, along with a $5 processing fee, to the guidance counselor. The first transcript request that you process, you want to leave time to have a full conversation with your guidance counselor. Don't think you're going to just drop it off and go. You really need to sit and go over it and make sure that it's complete and that the counselor understands what it is you want to have happen and what needs to go. After that, each counselor handles it a little differently, but for most of us, it's that first one that we take the most time with. If you want to turn in more than one transcript request, because you've hit the send button on more than one application, you can certainly bring in more than one at any one time. We accept a check in the amount, you know, if you bring in 6, it would be $30. You don't have to come up with a $5 check or a $5 bill for each college. That's not necessary. Once you submit your college application, you will receive, because every college has a robot that they've employed, you will receive numerous emails saying that you've not received, that the college has not received the transcript packets. They're just a robot. It's just a process. If you have a deadline of December 1st and you send your application in on November 5th, they're not even going to look or pull your application from the server until December 1st, if then. So please know that just because you're getting all of these robot emails saying we don't have your transcript, we don't have your recommendations, we don't have the school profile, it doesn't mean that we've forgotten you or we screwed up. It just means that it takes time. You're one of thousands of applications. Once the deadline passes and it's been a week or two, if you're still getting those, by all means, let your guidance counselor know. And we will look into it by calling, and we can't just send it again through Naviance. We have to go a different route, but we can certainly get it to them. Once a student applies, they have submitted their application, they have applied. And if the college is making a decision and doesn't have what they need from Bishop Fenwick, they let us know. They will call us and let us know. That's why you give them the counselor information they ask for it on the common application. So you don't have to worry about that. For Mrs. Drezick and Mrs. Forrest, if you are ready to turn in transcript requests, you're going to go to Mrs. Langer in the guidance office, and you're going to hand her the transcript request with the $5. She will, at the end of every day, she's going to let Mrs. Forrest know who has submitted her transcript request, and she's going to let Mrs. Drezick know who on her caseload has submitted, and then they will be in touch with you with any questions. So it should be very smooth, very easy for all of us. I'm in the office, Mr. McMurray and Mrs. Conroy, we're all in the office, so you'll come to us directly if you're on our caseload. The tricky part about the transcript request is that Bishop Fenwick has its own deadline for a transcript request to ensure that we have enough time to get the information to the school. We require 10 school days. That does not include weekends. It does not include snow days, or Mr. Noonan might be good to us and give us a day off days. It just requires school days. And so we have provided for you, and it will be in the senior handbook, the most common college deadlines, and then the request date that we need the transcript request. And I have to say, and I know I speak for all of us, the first one, we have to hold your feet to the fire because that takes the greatest amount of work and the longest for us to get it in. So please take a look at it. And for those of you who are thinking of November 1, I'm sure you're looking at Monday, October 19th and realizing that's a little over a week away, that you have to have hit your send button on your application so that you can complete the transcript request and hand it to your guidance counselor by October 19th. So for many of you, that's probably taking your breath away, but if you've already met with your counselor, you're well aware of this. If you look at the rest of the dates, they're all right there. And, you know, if you have a date, if your college is a date in between any of these, just figure out 10 school days. The only other thing I'd like to reiterate, and Mr. McMurray brought this up earlier, because of the Christmas holiday, the last possible time that we will accept a transcript request for January 1 is December 17th. And that's because we too want to have vacation and we need to get it out prior to vacation. So if you're thinking of January 1st or you're thinking of January 15th and you want your transcript packets to arrive in time, then you've got to get those applications in prior to Christmas. You can't wait till Christmas vacation. Then bring your transcript requests in December 17th or before. It's fine. And I'm going to turn this over now to, I think it's Mr. McMurray that's going to talk to you about some terminology that's defined in our handbook.
Thank you. Being mindful of time, I can imagine that the students in the virtual room are probably more familiar with these terms than the parents. So I just want to run through them quickly, particularly the top two. Early decision is a binding plan, which implies that the student, the parents, and the counselor sign an agreement that the student has decided that he or she will attend the institution if accepted and withdraw all other applications. So make sure that's a first choice if you're applying early decision. Now, I know there are lots and lots of ED1 and ED2 plans out there and different permutations of early decision. If you have any questions about how to navigate those waters with your top choices, please talk to your counselor. Early action is a non-binding, really sort of no-lose option if you're a solid student who doesn't need the fall trimester to boost your record. If you're a very consistent student and they offer an early action plan, it just means if you can complete your application earlier, you'll get a decision earlier and you won't have any obligation to attend. So it's kind of a nice way to get some good news before the holidays. If some of your colleges have early action options and you're well enough along with your application. Rolling decision is fairly common as well, and you know, the level of binding decision and rolling or whatever has really no direct connection to how strong the institution is or how good a match it might be for you. Rolling decision means that as soon as you complete your application, the colleges are going to, on a rolling basis, make decisions as they go along. So you might hear as soon as a couple or 3 weeks after you apply at some of these schools, and that can be good as well. And then regular decision is the plan that used to dominate the business. Now it's probably about half. These are applications that are due usually from mid-January to February 1, February 15, even March 1st. And they turn them around fairly quickly and still are able to provide decisions in April. So those are the 4 decision plans. And again, let us know if you have any questions about which plan is right for you at which school. I'm going to turn back to Amanda now to kind of talk us through the connection between Common App and Naviance and what the federal, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act has to do with it all. There you go.
You did it. You did it. Okay. So I am going to talk about the FERPA, which is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. What FERPA does is it regulates the privacy of student education records, which can include your application to the college where you enroll. FERPA also gives the right to review confidential letters of recommendation provided as part of that application after you enroll. In the Common App, which I'll discuss in a minute, students will be asked if they want to waive the right to review confidential letters of recommendation. So what is it that you should know about this waiver? If you choose not to waive your rights, you can someday see your letters of recommendation at a college at which you are enrolled. That's if the college saves those recommendations. By waiving your rights, it lets colleges know that you do not intend to read the recommendations, which helps reassure colleges that the letters are candid and truthful. Some recommenders may decline to write a letter for you if you do not waive your rights. Either way, the decision is yours. It's important to discuss this with your children because once the decision is made, you cannot change your mind. I've been going through during my meetings and we've been discussing the FERPA. Most of my students have signed off on it already, and that's in an effort to make sure that we sync up their Common App and Naviance accounts together. So many of you might be asking, how do the Common App and Naviance, how do they work together? Almost all students are going to use the Common App to apply to college. It's an efficient way of applying because students can opt to apply to multiple schools using this setup. Students will create an account, they'll fill out the application with their personal data, upload their essay, and then apply to the schools that they have added to their Common Application account. Now, Naviance is how students' documents and information are submitted to colleges. So this includes their high school transcript, letters of recommendation, and any additional school reports. Students must sync their Common App to Naviance in order for this process to be successful. So essentially, when meeting with seniors these last couple of weeks, counselors have established that students have access to their Naviance and Common Application accounts, or if they haven't created a Common App account, counselors have been working with students on making one for them. Once a student has completed their Common Application and they hit submit, that begins the transcript request process that Ms. McLaughlin discussed earlier. Once we receive that transcript request from students, that's our cue as counselors to go ahead on Naviance and send out all the additional documentation. Again, the high school transcript, letters of recommendation, and any other school forms. On a personal note, I just want to add, I've been really impressed with my students already this year. Many of them have already completed the Common Application to include their essay. They've firmed up their list of schools that they want to apply to. It's been a really great experience so far, and I'm just looking forward to continuing to work with them.
Thank you, Amanda. Appreciate it. Now, everybody's favorite topic, standardized testing. I think that this is going to be a really interesting year because so few opportunities to take the test have existed, and so many colleges, probably 90% of the colleges out there, have adopted some sort of either temporary or permanent standard optional test policy. But just to run through it quickly, what the procedures are for those who have taken or are planning to take or utilize tests. Going to kick it back to Mary Lou. Come on. I can do this. It's not, the click is not responding. Hold on one second.
Got it. I got it.
Okay, thank you.
We about 2-3 weeks ago, we announced, we actually were granted permission from the College Board to offer the SATs to our seniors and only Bishop Fenwick seniors in our building. And that will take place for those who signed up next Wednesday. The kids have all been given, I've been told to come down and pick up their student guides. Tomorrow, I'm hoping that the rest of the registration forms that are available on the student resource boards are complete and brought in. As a parent, you have the choice of paying the $68 by check before the exam, indicating that you wish to be billed through fax, or if the student doesn't show up or shows up, you will be billed through fax if they signed up ahead of time, because we ordered only the number of tests for students that signed up. Due to the pandemic, many colleges are saying that standardized tests are now optional. So I think the word that we want you to focus on is optional. And that word means that the student may opt to send the tests or not. But what you need to know is if the college sees the test scores, they will be part of the acceptance process. They will be part of reviewing your application. So just be very careful when you are filling out the registration forms for the SAT that you do not indicate when you took the SATs, if you took the SATs, or give them the name of any colleges where you want those scores sent. That is strictly up to the student when they apply. And for those of you who are taking it on the 14th, you will be given those options in the administration period of the SAT, which will start as early as 7:15 on Wednesday morning. And if you got all the information packets and you've been online, you know what those parameters are all about. What we as a school are recommending is that you do not self-report your scores on the Common App unless it enhances your application. And you can make that decision by looking at what scores each school is looking for. And if your scores that you have or that you earn going forward enhance that, then by all means, have them sent. You do not want to indicate whether you have taken them, because then the question is, why didn't you send the scores? So just leave it blank on the Common App. You don't have to fill that all in. Then get your scores and review them. And if you choose to use them, you go through the College Board to have them sent to individual schools. You don't have to have them sent to all your schools. You have to name the schools where you want them sent. And it's basically the same for the ACTs as it is for the College Board. But in the case of the ACTs, you go to the American College Testing through your account with them. And if you have scores from both the ACT and the SAT, then you can use the concordance tables that are available in the senior handbook to determine if you want, which set of scores you want. Do you want the SAT or the ACT? The SAT permits you to choose one set of scores once. So you get a one-time option. And there again, that's why you want to wait to see your scores first, compare them to any previous administration scores you have, and determine if you want to use them, if you have to use them, if any colleges still want them, and which set you want sent. Obviously, if they're more than 50 to 100 points better in any one area, then you would want the better score sent. 5 or 10 doesn't really matter, but any significant increase in the score or higher score, then you would want to select that one set to be sent. Back to you, Bill.
Thank you. Once the application hits the desk of a college admission person, what are they looking at? I'm being mindful of time here. I see it's 7:04. We're going to push through to the end here. If you need to leave, do know that the recording will be available later. I appreciate your time, but I hope you can stay for a few more minutes. In college admissions, it's really the student's academic record that's the most important part of any application. And you know, to that end, the seniors here put forward their first 3 years, which is, at this point etched in stone. There's not a lot you can do about that at this point. But that's the foundation. And then what you do from here is going to determine some of what happens with your applications. But the overall academic record in college prep courses, which really works on a number of levels, the GPA, in what I call the 5 basic food groups, which is actually 6 food groups at Fenwick. It's English, math, science, social studies, foreign language, and at Fenwick, theology, which is another core discipline. So your performance in those classes is really going to form the foundation over time of your evaluation in the admission office of any college. Combined with the rigor of your course load, whether all at Fenwick, whether all your college courses are college prep, whether you have a mixture of some CP and some honors courses, or you're predominantly honors, or you've been able to move into advanced placement courses, students who challenge themselves are seen as good bets, all other things equal, by college admission offices. So hopefully you've been able to add some of that extra rigor. The good news for Fenwick students is that because the tradition of college attendance is so strong, you really can't duck the tough stuff here. And you've put together a good curriculum, no matter which classes you've opted for over the 4 years. Some may be more rigorous than others, but they're all considered demanding in the eyes of a college admission office. And then the trend, of course, from year to year, from subject to subject, from school to school. If you haven't spent all your time at Fenwick, what have you done from in those 3 dimensions? And those 3 main aspects of your transcript are going to go into the mind and heart and prescribed rubric of a college admission office, and really, like I said, form the foundation of the decision moving forward. What else is involved in that decision? Non-academic pursuits. And in my humble opinion, based on years of experience, I can say that quality is better than quantity when it comes to what you do outside of the classroom. Your demonstrated interest in clubs and theater and athletics and art and paid employment and all of these great activities really matter. But don't be shy. If something has been important to you and has taken a lot of your time, you need to let the college know about it, even if it's a solitary activity, because they just want to know how you spend your time, how creatively, how do you challenge yourself with your free time, and what have you been able to accomplish. Sustained involvement impresses the most. Something you've been doing for all 4 years or for 3 years anyway. It's always more interesting than someone who is joining 5 or 6 things in the senior year to flesh out the resume. Where colleges are looking for progression, for sustained involvement. It doesn't matter if you don't fill the whole list. If you've done 2 or 3 things extensively, if you've spent every waking hour trying to be the best violinist you can be, these are important things to note, and not be shy or be embarrassed by the fact that you don't have 15 things on your resume. It's better to, like I say at the bottom, it's better to sustain a couple of things for all 4 years than to join many for a year at a time. Although certainly it's never too late to start something new that you have an interest in. Evidence of solid writing, whether you're going to be majoring in something like engineering or architecture, or something that is more writing intensive or research based, the colleges want to know that you can write effectively and express yourself in standard written English. They still expect a certain base level of writing performance. And some of the ways that they get at that are through your grades in your English and social studies courses and theology courses. Through some of the standardized testing vehicles, they'll be able to assess certain aspects of your command of language. Many of the selective colleges will have supplemental short essays and short questions for you to answer in writing. But clearly the most important and the central piece is your personal statement, otherwise referred to as the essay. And there are some really good specific tips on how to put that essay together if you haven't already started, or even if you have and you need to go back and do some editing. So once again, to go over some of these great tips on how to make a good common application essay, I'm going to turn back to my
Thanks, Bill. Can you hear me? Because I can't hear you.
I was muted temporarily, but yes,
Oh, sorry.
you got it. You're on.
Okay. Um, so I think we've talked about the essay several times in the last year. I think at this point, what's most important is to check and see if you even need one. A lot of the state schools do not require the essay. So you want to make sure that before you struggle writing one, that one's even needed. The writing sample is thought to be, it must be well edited, and it must demonstrate an academic approach to writing. Very often, the first time we look at a draft from a student, I'm circling words like good. There's so many different ways to say good. Academically, we would not say good. We would say well, we would say outstanding. And that's just an example of well edited and an academic approach to writing. Your essay that they're asking for is not really an essay. It does not make a point. It doesn't argue a point or even answer a question. There's basically only two ways to write a college writing sample. One is, what happened to me? And did I happen to something? Not many of us have something that happened to me, fortunately or unfortunately. But we happened to something. What did we get involved in that changed us? What did we experience that changed us? And certainly colleges have stated in many of the webinars I've attended that COVID and the quarantine has given all people a wonderful opportunity to experience new things, whether it's cooking or silence. I read an excellent essay last week that was about experiencing silence for the first time, that in this student's home, there was just so much noise in the first part of quarantine that the family voted to have an hour a day where there was absolutely nothing on and no one talked. They just experienced silence. And this student wrote a phenomenal essay about experiencing an hour of silence for the first time. So it doesn't have to be anything great. It just has to be very introspective and reflective and demonstrate that you changed. How did the student change as a result of what happened to them, or they experienced something by many of our students are best buddies, and they've had great experiences with some of the kids that they come in contact with those adventures that they go on with them. And that is the perfect college application writing sample. You want to make sure that it shows, it does not tell. We want to taste it. We want to hear it. We want to feel it. We want to cry at the end, laugh at the end. We want to wait to get to the end. When I read college essays and applications at BU, if I couldn't get past that first paragraph and really want to know what happened after the first paragraph, the rest of the essay didn't get read. So you really want to make that first paragraph an introduction to what you're going to be talking about, and make the reader, who, by the way, the reader could be anyone from the age of 25 and up, and the reader is human and usually reading these at night and they're tired. So make them entertaining. And definitely be you. You don't need to be an adult. You don't need to be your parents. You need to sound just like you do when you come into your guidance counselor's office. That's perfect. You are perfect. So right now, counselors are happy to read and really are key to this process, because they know if that essay is good enough, competitive enough at the schools where you're applying. The more competitive schools require a better written essay. And we will be honest with you. For editing, such as grammar, that you can approach one of your senior English teachers, but keep in mind that they are working full-time. They are doing this as a favor to you, and you want to give them plenty of lead time, both your counselor and your English teacher. It's not something that you can pop in on Monday and say, I have a transcript request I have to turn in on Wednesday. Could you read my essay and make some edits? That has to be done way ahead of time. So if you haven't started it, there's no time like tonight when this program is over to begin. And I think I'm throwing that back to Bill. Is that correct?
It is. Thank you very much. Just as we move toward closure here, I really appreciate your time. Just a few things that to keep in mind in terms of trying not to let your sense of self-worth get wrapped up in college admissions decisions, because there are an awful lot of factors that affect what colleges do that are totally out of your control as students and families. You have no idea going in what the institutional needs are. I've sat in meetings where the admission office is given marching orders by the board enrollment committee, and there is no way that any student would have the ability to know that, and nor would the admission office know how it's going to turn out. Specific program needs, in given years, does the team need a point guard or a quarterback or a setter? Are the enrollments in computer science lower than they would like? Is there a new science building that we have to fill out with all kinds of new majors? And then the overarching impact of financing on higher education and the colleges' need to maximize their net revenue has led more and more colleges over the years to integrate the ability to pay with the admission profile in terms of their decision making. And every college handles this somewhat differently. There really is very little ability to predict from year to year how much this third factor is going to come into play. Therefore, it is totally impossible or virtually impossible for families to know whether their family financial circumstance is going to be in the favored or not so favored category going in, which is why it's really important to have a list of colleges that you really like that is balanced based on your academic ability, your social needs and aspirations, your interest in what academic programs you're interested in, and what your family can afford. And when you get to the shaded area of all of those circles, that's the sweet spot that we all hope to get you to. And I really appreciate your time tonight. If questions did pop up along the way, please make note of your counselor's email address here. Donna Langer at the bottom for all else. And thank you. And because I have a relatively low senior counseling load, if you have college-related questions that are more general in nature, please feel free to shout me down as well. I'm always in the office every day, and I look forward to meeting you virtually and to seeing my colleagues in person again whenever we can. And thanks again, and go Crusaders.